Hi, my name is Ilene Rein from Pounding Pavement 101. I'm an executive recruiter and a job search strategist. I teach job seekers how to land their dream jobs. And today I have Greta Zutz. She is here to provide a lot of great information for those of you who are unemployed or looking for their next job. So you really need to do that preparation. Greta, thank you for joining me. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Eileen. Always a pleasure to chat with you. And I'm Greta Zutz. I'm with Center for Wealth Preservation. I help executives and owners of companies understand how benefits work and financial plan for their future, especially when someone's at that pivotal moment of changing their job or looking to seek out maybe a whole new position or upgrade their position, whatever it is. I'm here as a resource for them in their financial planning.
I thought that this would be a great conversation between us because I know when I've switched jobs, I had no idea what to do. I didn't know in terms of health benefits, in terms of life insurance, in terms of retirement planning, budgeting. We're going to do a series of conversations about this to bring this expert advice from you to our viewers, so this way they are fully prepared. So I just want to take a second that if you are watching this, I want to remind you to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me if you're watching this on another social media channel. So this way you get alerts every time we post new videos to help you in your career pathways. So Greta, let's talk today about health insurance because there's a lot of layoffs coming right now. And people are confused because you can't go without health insurance. You just never know. So if someone was laid off, let's start with that. What do they do? Because all of a sudden they've lost their income. And then there's that COBRA option, which is incredibly expensive. So now you have no income and you have increased costs. Tell us, what does someone do?
Well, I'd like to say that you said such a wonderful thing, Eileen, about you can't go without it. But I think back to my 20s, not that long ago, and probably I thought I could. I also probably had the most amazing group coverage. I worked for big companies. And did I even take advantage of that coverage and go to the dermatologist and do all the things I do as someone older now? Probably not. But I don't think I was aware at all of how much health insurance coverage actually costs a company, costs a family, costs an individual. Maybe I was only just aware of my copay, and that was very manageable. So health insurance, just as an example, for one person to be covered, just a single person, not even a person plus spouse or person plus partner or person plus spouse and children, is going to run you just your average coverage, probably 18 grand a year for that coverage. That's not even talking about specialized care or CAT scans or MRIs or anything other than just hitting a deductible. So often when we're at a company, a large company, and think of what we call a census, the amount of people in that company, the bigger the company, if you're with a really large company, probably the juicier, the more expansive, the better the coverage is when you're at that company. Sometimes when you go to a smaller company, because the census is smaller, the pool is smaller, the bill is smaller to the carrier from the company, that coverage might not be as expansive, but it's still costing almost 20 grand per person for that company to have you just covered. Now add on a spouse, now add on some children, you can see how that is a really big expense for a company. So often when we leave a job or we're laid off, we're not really aware of what health insurance will cost us or what to have in reserve and what our options are. Some options are state specific, so you do want to know your domiciled state, your residential state, not necessarily, where your new job will be, but where you live is really important to your coverage. And then what to do when you lose coverage or think you're going to lose coverage is kind of a sticky situation because it might not be in your best interest to go to your HR, or it might be very confusing to look up your coverage online, but there's a few things you can do. Number one, you can call that 1-800 number on the back of your insurance card and talk to someone at that customer service of your carrier. Now, you might have to do this a couple different times just to get their input, but that's always a good place to start. Make sure you know how long your existing coverage lasts. If you quit or are laid off on the 28th, do you have coverage for just 2, 3 more days? Or do you have coverage for a whole nother cycle? Because remember, that company is paying that bill every month. So are you covered for another 30 days? Do you have 31 days to figure out if Cobra is the right option? Or do you have a very short time, maybe 1 or 2 days, and you wait abruptly lose coverage in 24 to 48 hours? So think
Does
about.
that happen where all of a sudden, just 24 hours, you're done? Because I thought that there was a grace period.
Not
No,
always.
not for all companies.
Not
Very
always.
interesting.
And it might be sticky, like you might not be able to really ask that. So kind of knowing ahead of time will help you be prepared, and just lining up, if you have a very important surgery or doctor's appointment. I'm not saying stay at a job you don't want to be at just to get medical coverage, but we do hear
That's a whole nother conversation.
that's a whole nother conversation. That's out of above my pay grade. But that idea that we just sort of blindly sign up. Often we sign up for our benefits not really knowing what they entail or what we're entitled to. So that being in touch with someone who is a health insurance broker, and what you want to look for, you can ask, your tax planner, you can ask someone like me, a financial planner, you could ask Ilene for a resource. Asking for someone who specifies in individual coverage, who can review your Cobra options with you, is your right as an employee to ask for that referral. Maybe not from your company, but to find that person who is highly specialized. And this is something we do at our firm when people change jobs. So we get them prepared to understand what their options are. There's no surprises. You'll have no blip in coverage. And then maybe the options, dependent on what you need for care. Are you a diabetic and you need medication? Are you someone like me in my 20s where I didn't even go to the doctor? What is that situation? What doctors are you seeing? What doctors are your family members seeing? And being prepared for that. So you want to find a specialized broker who understands your state rules and options. And you also want to maybe call your existing carrier if you're going to continue Cobra and just find out. Read the fine print, because you might get something from your company by mail or email, and you might get that in 14 days from that layoff date or that quit date or separation of service date, and you might have a very short window to make a decision on that. They're not going to give you a ton of time, and I've often heard of people missing deadlines and having to go without coverage.
And that is crucial. So literally, it sounds like the first call, if you find yourself in a layoff situation, a furlough situation, or you've given notice and they walk you out the door, your first call should be to that insurance person to understand, because as you're walking out, and you and I both know someone who has had this happen where they got hit by a taxi cab, okay, and wound up in the hospital as they were walking across the street. And you never know, not that I knock on wood, I don't want that to happen to anyone. And I always say that I tell the story so this way it doesn't happen twice. But you don't want to put yourself at risk. So once you're laid off, or if you're laid off, not once, I hope it never happens to anyone, what are the options besides Cobra? Now, I know my own son was laid off, and we actually found him an interim insurance, until he became employed. So what advice do you have for those people who are all of a sudden without insurance?
Absolutely. I would say not that level, I'm not using level A, B, and C to mean anything else than just sort of think of what level you're at in terms of maybe me in my 20s, I'm a C. Something could still happen and I would need catastrophic or interim care. But if you have a spouse or children, maybe you're level A, meaning that you need to carry that vision, that dental, that full family coverage. So first of all, kind of take a assessment look at what is it that you would need in that interim. Is it just catastrophic care? Is it just, yes, I could cover, if I went into the hospital and I had a deductible, I could cover that first few thousand. Because remember, it's not inexpensive to carry individual coverage, but if you are on ongoing medication, and you've probably all had this experience where you go to pick up a medication at Duane Reade or CVS or Walgreens, whatever it is, and first the price comes up and you go, oh my gosh, no, and then factor in your insurance, and then you're paying $2 for your coverage for your medication. So that idea that, like, if you're on an ongoing medication and that medication is a life-saving thing for you or part of your regime, you're going to want to know there might be some out-of-pocket costs where it's not factored into your catastrophic or interim care. So again, state specific, domiciled state where you live does matter what's available to you. So you do want to work with someone who can tell you specifically what's available. For a lot of people, Cobra, though expensive, is still a good option. I'm jumping ahead here, but if I get laid off on the second of the month and I'm lucky enough to have coverage for that next, 29 days, I might want to carry Cobra, though it's an expense. Maybe that Cobra might be, $1,200 a month or something, not a bill I was expecting while being laid off. But the idea that that expense, if I'm carrying my Cobra for, 3 months or even a full year till I find other coverage, that is now a deduction when I go to file my taxes for that current year, the next year, because I had to pay out of pocket for my coverage. It wasn't my company that was paying for that coverage. So make sure to keep record of that if you are carrying your own coverage. And like you said with your son, Ilene, the options you might want to see, even when you're working with a broker, instead of just going online and just buying coverage on your own, if you're someone who needs care, is on medication, is supporting other people with your health plan, that what are my options over these next couple months to a year, as long as I'm allowed to carry Cobra, if that's an option. If that's not an option and the cost is egregious, then used to be you could call the carrier directly and get a plan. That's not true anymore unless you have 5 people. So if you leave a job, you start a company and you have 4 more employees, then you could probably get a group plan. But otherwise, you're looking at an individual policy, as you said, most likely interim or catastrophic. But if you need more care, you might want to level up and have a richer policy. And that's where you see the levels of policies known as like gold, platinum, and beyond, that might fit your needs. And you actually made me think of another thing. If your spouse has really rich health insurance or domestic partner, in some ways that could be allowable depending on the health plan, maybe you just need to be added on to their plan.
I didn't think of that. And you touched upon a couple of key points that we're going to discuss in future videos in terms of tax implications, in terms of financial planning for something like this. So for those of you who are watching, I want to remind you to subscribe. So this way you get alerts when we have future discussions about these type of topics to help you as you're switching jobs or you became unemployed, and how to handle it financially and through insurance. So Greta, it sounds like the first call should be to someone like you or you, okay? And we'll leave your contact information in this video. So this way they can reach out to you and get some professional guidance. I think that's the key, is don't go this by yourself. There are people out there just like you who can help you through the process.
Absolutely. And that they want to give you information. I think we all turn to Google. It's the whole WebMD. I got a bug bite the other day and immediately I thought, that's it. That's the end. It's a spider. I'm going down. There's rings on it. No, it was just a no-see-um, as they call them. But that WebMD, like maybe don't Google it. There's a few things that maybe you don't want to Google. You want to just stay away from something as important as this, getting all your information from Googling it or whatever web browser you use. The other thing people often do is turn to a trusted friend or another employee, but their experience might be so different than yours. Maybe they have a whole different medical situation. Maybe their division of the company had a whole different census and a whole different plan. So using your resources at work or a previous job can be great. But I remember years ago at a very large Fortune 500 company, seeing a vice president turn to a new first job out of college person and asking them, what do I pick in my 401k? What do I pick for my health insurance? I was like, you're a VP with a family. No offense to the day one person on the job, but I just don't think that's where you should get your information from. So this is one of those things where we sort of rely on our peers or even our parents to tell us, and you really want to make sure as an individual, for yourself, for your family, that you're doing your own research and talking to an expert so that you don't have something catastrophic happen.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. Reach out to someone who actually knows this field, knows it inside and out, and can give you the good, the bad, and the ugly. So this way you can make an educated choice. So Greta, we're going to continue our conversation. We're going to do it in another video. My name is Ilene Rein. I am here with Greta Zutz. We are talking about health insurance for people who are laid off or who are looking to switch jobs. We're now going to go into other topics that really affect job seekers and career professionals. So I want to remind everyone to subscribe or follow to get alerts every time we post the additional videos in this series and new content for those career professionals. My name is Ilene Rein. I'm an executive recruiter and job search strategist from County Pavement 101.